Hey guys, my name is Amy Pennington and I am the potter here at Pennington Design Pottery, and today I'm going to be showing you how to pull handles. So let's roll up our sleeves and get started. Alright, so we will quite literally need to roll up our sleeves because this is a bit messy. Maybe not for people who are magically clean, but I'm not one of those people. So it does get a little bit messy, so I always like to wear my apron and roll up my sleeves. So there are many ways that you can make handles. You can roll out like little clay snakes. Probably the most efficient way to make handles would be with a clay extruder. However, not everybody has that. So the next arguably most efficient way to make handles is by pulling handles. And so I'm going to go over that with you today. It's really not complicated, but it does take a lot of practice. So don't be discouraged. I even still end up wasting some clay sometimes when it breaks off. It happens and you just got to keep practicing. As far as tools, we really don't need a whole lot. You're just going to be working with the clay, your hands. You will need a bucket of water. And then I find that it's best if I put it on my plaster bats for the handles to rest for a little bit, but it's not necessary. You can just put them on your wearboards or on a table and that will work fine. All right, so for today, I have quite a few mugs on the wearboards back here that need handles. So I'm going to be pulling some handles for those. And one of the beginner mistakes that a lot of people make, and I used to make, is not letting their handles rest. So once you pull them, let them rest for a half hour to an hour, depending on how humid your studio is. But it's going to make it way easier to work with when you're attaching the handles, and they're not going to slump or disfigure as much. And again, once you've pulled the handles, there's a lot of different ways that you can go about attaching them too, which I can discuss in a minute. But first off, we just need to take a good size lump of clay. Go for about that much, so probably about a 2-pound lump of clay. And I'm just going to kind of form it into this long cylinder and make sure that my hand can kind of reach all the way around the clay. So that's kind of what I'm aiming for. And then we're going to move over to our bucket of water. All right, so we've got our bucket of warm water here. And I say warm because it's winter in the Pacific Northwest and it is cold. But I like to just dip the whole thing of clay and then my hand that's going to be pulling it. And we're going to start up at the top and we're going to use this pinching motion down. And when we come down, we're going to make sure that we're going all the way off the clay. So we're going to kind of squeeze and pull down. Squeeze and pull down. And we're just going to keep repeating that, making sure that your hands are staying wet. Otherwise, you're going to be ripping the clay. And I do find that sometimes it just depends on the clay itself, because some clays are a bit short, meaning they don't really have the plasticity that they should, and you can get a bit of ripping and tearing out of those. So as I'm going along, I'm also making sure I'm turning the clay so that I'm getting a nice, even pulled handle. So I'm going to keep on going with this until I get the thickness that I want. And one of the reasons why I said that this is arguably the most efficient way to make handles is because you can make several handles worth out of the same lump of clay. So it's pretty efficient as far as time goes and clay usage. And we're just going to keep going here. I always find that I have like a little lump at the end of it. No worries, we'll just pinch that bit off. And depending on the handle shape you want, you can conform your hand to different shapes. So I can hold my hand a little bit more round if I'm wanting a more round handle, or if I'm wanting mine to be a little bit more oval shape, which I normally do, I'm gonna hold my fingers more like this. So now that, and most of the time, I'm pulling between my thumb and my pointer finger and just gripping, nice, steady grip all the way off to the edge. So now that we have this nice long tail, I'm gonna go ahead and pinch off little bits onto my plaster bat. All right, and now just depending on the handle length that you are wanting, you can go ahead and just lay it down and pinch it off with your thumb against the surface. And this pull's giving me probably about 5 handles worth. And now I'm going to come back over and continue pulling. So I'm going to dip the clay and I'm going to grab up here at the top and I'm going to kind of squish it down again, because I find that if I can't get my hand all the way around it, I'm not going to get a very good pull. So I'm just kind of squishing it downwards here so that it's thin enough I can get my fingers around it. And then we're going to start pulling from the top down. And yes, it's always going to look a little funny because that's just pottery. It's funny business, y'all. So from the top, nice and steady down, turning it around, constantly making sure your hands are wet. Otherwise, you're going to end up grabbing the clay and ripping it. And this is where I said that it gets messy, because no matter what, you're going to have water dripping off your hand. So you're definitely going to need a mop after. Woo! And that's what happens when your hands get too dry. But no worries, we caught it. And this is about the thickness that I want anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and pinch these off. So for today, I have 9 mugs that I need handles for, a little teacup, and then handle for a teapot, and then handle for a lid of the teapot. So I've got enough mug handles done now, and now I'm going to go ahead and do the ones for the teapot and the teacup. So I went ahead and made the tail of this a little bit thinner, because that's going to be a nice thin handle for the top of my teapot, and then as well as a nice thin handle for the tea cup itself. And it's always a good idea when you're pulling handles just to pull 1 or 2 extra, because then if you end up attaching one wonky or need to restart on one of your mugs or whatever you're attaching handles to, you have that extra one there for you. Now I've got a little bit of leftover clay. Just gonna slap that right back into the bag and wrap it up. Now, just to show you the reason why we're gonna let these rest on the plaster bat is because they are nice and soaked with water now. And if we try to attach these ones are fairly thick, but they could end up just kind of slumping down, as you know, if you not want a nice, curled shape, it could end up slumping down because of the excess moisture in the clay. So just having it rest on that plaster bat or wooden board is going to help suck out some of that moisture that we just added into the clay. All right, now that I have worked to trim the mugs, we're going to go ahead and attach the handles. So I've got my mug body here, and then I've had the handles resting for about 30 minutes. And what I like to do is just cut off the tip, because sometimes it can be a little bit deformed. And then I'm going to go ahead and score it. So I've got my little scoring tool here, and I'm just going to kind of rake it across there. And then I've got some slip that I keep made all the time. And this is just excess trimmings that I let get bone dry and then added some water to them. It is important that they are bone dry, otherwise it doesn't fully dissolve. So we've got a little bit of slip on the end of this. Now I'm going to mark out where I want my handle. And I like to go where my logo is, just to kind of keep things symmetrical. And I'm going to go about maybe 1/2 inch up from the base. And then same again from the rim. like so. So I've scored those, and then I'm going to put a little bit of slip down here at the bottom. All right. Now this handle is a bit thicker than I want the handle to be. So I've pushed this on here. I'm going to go ahead and use my thumb and finger to kind of seal the clay down to the mug. And this is just going to make sure that it gets a nice good seal and will help to prevent cracking. And then since it is thicker than I want, something that you can do is after you attach the handle, you can come back over to your bucket of water. I just dip the whole thing in there up to the mug, and then I'm going to go ahead and get my hand wet and pull the handle again. So this allows us to get a little bit thinner handle and as well as a shape that we want. So now we're going to go ahead and drag it up and around. And handle is a little bit big, so what I'm going to do is trim off the edge with my needle tool here. So I'm going to go ahead and take it, cut off probably about a 1/2 inch, chuck that, and then I'm going to score this side of the handle where it's going to be meeting the mug. And then we're going to do the same that we did up above on the handle, give it a nice good little push there, and then use our thumb or finger to seal it down to the mug body. And then I like to be able to get it nice and sealed on there. With this clay, I kind of find that it has to be, otherwise we get cracks. So I take a wet sponge and just kind of drag some of the clay from the handle onto the mug body, like so. And I'm going to clean up any little slip marks from around the handles. And then I'm going to look down the mug to make sure that it's straight. So this needs to be tipped up a little bit. And then I'm going to look this ways, see how the shape is. I like it to be a little bit more oval shape. So just like that. And there we've attached our handle. So if you don't need your handle to be any thinner and you pulled it, you know, the exact thickness that you want, you can just skip that pulling step and just go ahead and attach it straight to your mug body or whatever you're working on. So that's how you pull a handle. I hope that this was helpful for you. And like I said, this is just one of many ways that you can make handles. So like this video if you liked it, and make sure to subscribe. Thanks, guys.